Let's bring in Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. Thank you so much, Congressman. You know what drives me crazy is there's some of these guys that actually went to law school, and they went to law school at really good, supposedly really good law schools. And I've been hearing them lie about what the United States Constitution says and what the United States Constitution does not say about guns for a very, very long time. So I just got to ask, you served. I'm just curious. Why is it so important that we have 18-year-olds have the right to buy a military-style weapon
or two
on their 18th birthday that actually is more lethal and deadly than the M16s we gave our soldiers and Marines in Vietnam?
Look, I think it's a good question. So federally, I think people kind of mistake what are the laws out there. And this is important. Federally, nowhere in this country can you buy a handgun under the age of 21, okay? So if you look at that and say, but that means that there's no federal requirement for age of 21 for long rifles. So if you think about that, what was a long rifle? And why would it make sense to say 18 and above? At that time, it was probably a 22. It was probably a shotgun. I guarantee you it wasn't the consideration of an AR-15. And by the way, look, I'm a gun owner, you know, all those caveats. I'm a Second Amendment supporter. But for those that try to imply that a pistol versus an AR situation is the same because they both shoot bullets, it is a vastly different exchange of gunfire. If an untrained shooter has an AR-15 against somebody that is extremely trained with a handgun, it is maybe a level playing field. So I think we have to, we just raised the age of purchasing cigarettes, for God's sakes, to 21. The age of buying alcohol is 21. I think the age to buy a gun should be 21. And people can come to me with all the caveats about, well, they can serve in the military. I'll say the same thing about drinking beer, by the way, between the age of 18 and 21. But I want to remind people that in the military, you have access to weapons, but the military deeply and intensely controls when you can have that weapon, when you can carry it, and when you can have ammo. You don't get to take it home and put it under your pillow. So that's really important for people to realize.
And you're trained, as you know, for months and months and months on how to use that. In some states now, you don't even need a permit or any training to have an AR-15. So as you watch this debate, Congressman, both as someone who supports the Second Amendment, a Republican, somebody who served in the military, and now someone who's inside for a few more months anyway, inside the United States Congress, do you see any will? Do you see any way that something will change here? Different than after Sandy Hook, when we said this changes everything, and it didn't really, though some things changed at the state level, as Joe said. Is there any will? Are there any Republicans that you talk to that you know say, we can't go on like this?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I talk to him privately, you know that story. It's the same as like the Trump issue. Look, I got to say to anybody that's, you know, in a position similar to mine that would take a vote on this, it's really hard to come out the first time and say we need universal background checks, even though 90% of your fellow Americans agree, to say we need to raise the age, we need to do something about, you know, high capacity magazines. But the second you do it, you get all the text messages that are angry, and then you get over it and you feel really liberated and you can talk to people and tell the truth. Now, let me also say, too, that as Second Amendment defenders, the answer to defend your Second Amendment isn't to go out and stand in the middle of the friggin' Michigan State House with an AR-15 because you're tough and you can do that. It's actually to find responsible ways to make gun ownership for those that are willing to obey the law and to be very aggressive about locking up those that wouldn't, about locking up criminals, and about saying let's keep guns out of the hands of those that can't handle it. That's how you defend a Second Amendment right. It's not to, you know, wear a half shirt and stand in the middle of a state building because you have the right to open carry. And by the way, all these states, like every state can make their own decision on this constitutionally. Concealed carry, I'm a big supporter of. Open carry is a really weird thing when you're walking around with an AR-15 just because you can.
At Starbucks.
It is so bizarre. I mean, and the NRA even used to say it was bizarre. And as David French says, I mean, David's a big Second Amendment rights guy. He also talks about how bizarre it is. And it also, like, why would you do that? Just why would you do that? It makes no sense.
It's a fetish. It's a gun. It's a gun fetish. It's like worshiping guns because it's somehow, I think, look at these social media accounts. It's people that, maybe it's part of a mental health thing that don't feel they're adequate. They have, they feel less than they should. And so they have to pose with guns, and it's sad, and it makes it look cool.
Well, there are a lot of people doing a lot of things and suggesting a lot of things to compensate for a lack of manhood. I won't even get into the tanning aspect of this.
Oh, okay, let's not go there.
Thank you.
Bizarre, it's early in the morning, but a lot of people who question their manhood right now talking about doing some really bizarre things.
Congressman, you're on the committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol and want to get your response to the new reporting we have this morning concerning Donald Trump and his reaction to the chanting that he heard from his supporters on that day outside that Capitol. The chant was "Hang Mike Pence." The following account from the New York Times is according to two people familiar with the work of the committee investigating the attack. Reading from the Times, quote, "Shortly after hundreds of rioters at the Capitol started chanting, 'Hang Mike Pence' on January 6, 2021, the White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows left the dining room off the Oval Office, walked into his own office, and told colleagues that President Donald J. Trump was complaining that the vice president was being whisked to safety. Mr. Meadows, according to an account provided to the House committee investigating January 6th, then told the colleagues that Mr. Trump had said something to the effect of, maybe Mr. Pence should be hanged. It's not clear what tone Mr. Trump was said to have used. According to the Times, at least one witness provided this account to the January 6th committee. Three sources gave Politico the same account, reporting that more than one witness testified that Trump, quote, expressed support for hanging his vice president. NBC News has not independently verified the claims in this reporting. A lawyer for Meadows told the New York Times he has every reason to believe that the account of what Mr. Meadows said is untrue. That's according to Meadows' lawyer.
I guess that's the real problem, Congressman, is you have people that work for Donald Trump who heard what Donald Trump said, people who work for Mark Meadows who heard what Mark Meadows said, and it seems that many of them were deeply, deeply offended. What can you tell us?
Well, look, I wish I could confirm or deny that officially since it didn't come from the committee. I won't, but we are, going to have fulsome hearings in June. So we'll talk about all things related to this. But let me just say, kind of on a little broader of that, there's no doubt the vice president was in danger on January 6th with rioters filling the Capitol. And we're going to do a better job of showing just how close that was, by the way. There's no doubt that the number 3 in command for the presidency, the Speaker of the House, was in danger, and all the way down the line. We were very close, closer than people realize, to basically a decapitation of government underneath the president. So imagine now a president of the United States deciding he's not going to leave, and then people that would be number 2, number 3, number 4, all within striking range of rioters or of insurrectionists. You can see the danger that we were in. We'll lay that out to people, and look, there's no doubt the president has very little remorse, because have you ever heard him express remorse? I haven't.
Yeah, let me ask you, Congressman, also about Mike Pence being in danger. I'd heard from one of these many accounts that we've seen in books and read about in papers about what happened on January the 6th, that Mike Pence and his entourage may have been concerned with security, with Secret Service, and took alternate steps to make sure his own people were with him. Can you give us any insight there?
Look, I wish I could. Again, it's something I don't know what's been released officially from the committee on that and hasn't. So we're going to save it till June, when I hope people watch this story from the beginning to the end. But look, again, it's We never should be in this position. This is the United States of America, where we spend billions of dollars, rightly, every year to ensure that we defend the line of succession to the presidency and the president themselves. If we end up in a position where that is in danger, where people don't believe that their vote counts, or they're told that democracy is rigged, democracy can't survive. It's that serious. The good news is we're about to have some accountability, and hopefully DOJ, this is outside of a decision by the House, DOJ takes a lot of the evidence that we can provide and decide whether there's criminal charges or not, and that's all I can say on that.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you very much. And up next on Morning Joe, we'll